everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we are going to be giving you guys our NFL Seekers consensus fantasy football wide receiver rankings. It's a combined ranking based on all three of our host rankings. And today, we're going to be talking about our wide receivers 20 to 11 on our list. Super excited. A lot of league-winning potential receivers we're going to talk about today. How are you guys?
I'm doing good. It feels good. I feel like we haven't had all three of us on a podcast in months. I wonder who we have to blame for that. But you know what? We're back. We're back, and it feels good to be back.
It does feel good to be back. Feels like forever, but it feels right. It's going to be fun to discuss these wide receivers, and also before we get into these wide receivers, how we feeling about just throwing a dart out there, Zeke and Dalvin, boys?
Yeah, two new recent signings. It's interesting. The Dalvin signing to the Jets is really confusing to me for fantasy. Like I wanted to draft Breece Hall, but with that Dalvin situation, I feel like Dalvin's going to be like the starter on first downs. And so that just makes that really muddy for Breece Hall, who's going in the third round. So I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm definitely not drafting Breece Hall where he's going. That's for sure. I could see myself taking Dalvin Cook in some drafts just if he falls for some upside. But I mean, I don't really think I'm taking Breece Hall unless he falls significantly. And it looks like as of now, Ramondre is falling after they added Zeke. So that is a little bit interesting that Ramondre is kind of taking a hit, but not Breece. And I think I'll definitely take Ramondre if he keeps falling because I don't think Zeke's going to take too much away from him. But that is really annoying because he's going to steal a lot of goal line touchdowns.
He is. And it is annoying for both players because the whole fantasy community, we're all so excited for these two running backs. I definitely think the Dalvin Cook signing kind of hurts Breece Hall more than Zeke hurts Ramondre. I still want Ramondre. I'd still be willing to take Ramondre in the third round. I don't want Breece Hall where he was going. I definitely think he should fall in ADP. So yeah, I still want Ramondre. I'm probably out on Breece coming back from ACL, and now with Dalvin Cook there, it's just too muddy.
What about you, Joe?
The waters are just so weird. That's the perfect word. It's just such muddy waters, and it's honestly gross. Because I feel like Dalvin and Breece Hall, yeah, I feel like they're both like bell cow 3-down type running backs, and I don't feel like they complement each other very well. And signing Dalvin to a 1-year, $8 million contract, it's like you feel obligated to give him 10, 15 touches a game. And so I hate that whole Jet situation. Honestly, I just sometimes I don't understand that because I honestly feel like having one bell cow running back and then having a guy that's a change of pace, like I thought the perfect duo was like a Tony Pollard and Zeke because their skill sets really complemented each other really well and they could both thrive. And so I just don't feel like that's the case for any of these. And so it really just muddies the water. And I'll see myself in drafts just go in a different direction because I just don't want anything to do with either of those.
There is going to come a point though, if you have a whole league that's out on say Breece Hall and he keeps falling, there's going to be a point where he does become valuable. But for me personally, that would have to be a couple rounds later than where he has been going.
For sure. But yeah, as of right now at their ADPs for me, it's not worth it, but I'm sure they'll continue to fall over the next few preseason games.
That's a good way of putting it, Shane. They do need to fall at least a round or so for me to consider Breece or Ramondre. And Zeke and Dalvin Cook, if they go around where they're currently going, I think it's fine just for the dart throw.
And this is exactly why you wait as long as possible to do your fantasy football drafts. This is why you wait.
Because this just it screws everything up. So I don't get people that can draft in the middle of July and everything because injuries and signings, and we're still yet to see where Leonard Fournette's going to go. I mean, that's still going to be interesting. Maybe he's a midseason signing when somebody gets hurt, but I don't know. That still scares me where he could potentially go.
Yeah, make sure to set your drafts for the beginning of September, right before the season. There could be a lot of injuries. We saw Treylon Burks go down with a scary-looking injury, but it looks like he's going to be okay and just miss a few weeks, thankfully. He's going to have a big season, so excited for him. Looks like there's no really any other news to talk about right now. Are you guys ready to get into our receiver rankings?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Really excited for it. We'll get into our NFL Seekers number 20 receiver. It is Calvin Ridley, who's is the wide receiver 17 right now. in consensus drafts. I have him as my wide receiver 17. Josh has him as his wide receiver 22, and Shane has him as his wide receiver 20. So you guys are essentially saying that you are out on Calvin Ridley. What have you seen from Calvin this offseason to make you guys lower on him than consensus?
Actually, I've definitely gotten higher on him since all this training camp stuff. Because if you guys remember a couple months back, I was way out on Calvin Ridley. I'm definitely higher on him, but I wouldn't say I'm out. I just where he's going right now, I feel like he's still such a question mark with the 2-year absence from football, new team. He's a little bit older. That team does have a handful of really good weapons. It's for me, it's just kind of a pretty big question mark to spend my 4th round pick on a guy like Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, it's not that I don't and dislike Calvin Ridley, but history of football in general and players that don't play for a year, they usually, unless it was like Antonio Brown, for some reason that dude, with even how crazy he was, he could come back and still be a top receiver in the league in any offense. But it's just it's a new system, it's a new offense, and he's been out of football for a little bit, and maybe that won't affect him at all. But in my heart, it scares me. It's not the football player Calvin Ridley, because I mean the last time we saw him on the field, I mean he was phenomenal. I actually had him on my fantasy team. The last year was has it been 2 years, right?
Yep.
Because
He
he
played
took a year off
he
of
played the
football.
first
21.
5 weeks of like 2020, 2021.
Yeah, and then he did he get hurt? Can't remember.
No, he stepped away from football for mental health.
Yeah, mental health.
It scares me. It scares me. But I mean, you see those training camp videos, and you're like, oh man, this dude, he's fast, he's slick. You know, you watch those hype videos, and you get higher on him. But right now, I'm just a little scared, and I think 22 for me is just where I feel comfortable. In the wide receiver rankings for him, it's not that I'm out, but it just depends where he falls.
Yeah, he is going as a wide receiver 17, so he would have to fall for you guys to take him compared to your boards, I guess. But yeah, I will just say it's being factored into his ADP, how good he's looked this offseason. The videos of him, obviously, he looks like the same player. He looks explosive as hell. He looks really good. I'm really excited for him. Obviously, I have him as my wide receiver 17. I feel like I could definitely have him higher even. I just feel like the sky's the limit. There are like a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. I think that is one negative. But I mean, other than that, I think he's going to be the alpha in this offense. So I don't really see too much negatives. I think he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver lock, honestly.
I do see a world where he proves us wrong, but also, a middle of the 4th round, that is still such a valuable pick. And you could get a guy like, one pick before him, you got Keenan Allen. You got Amari Cooper in the 4th round. Guys like that are a little more, safer, a little more safe, I guess you could say. And you don't want to only draft safe players. The teams that win championships are the teams that go for high volatility, high risk, high reward type of guys. And maybe that is Calvin Ridley. It's just me personally. I feel like 4th round is a little bit too rich for my blood. If he was in the 5th round around like Christian Watson, Drake London, yeah, I feel like I'd be all in on him. But I feel like he's 1 round too early for me.
That's kind of perfect. That's kind of how I feel right now, Shane, because in that 4th round, there's just guys that are hovering right around that ADP that I feel more comfortable with taking. And it's not that I wouldn't, be against or be mad about taking Ridley. It's just I do feel like there's a little bit safer options. But like you said, there's a floor and there's a ceiling. And so, Calvin really could be the ceiling player. And I do think he complements Trevor Lawrence's skill set very well. And I'm super excited to see the deep ball between those two, because I feel like it will be exciting. I mean, if Calvin Ridley's playing like Calvin Ridley 2 years ago, it's gonna be something special in that Jacksonville offense.
Yeah, you guys will notice a trend with my rankings, and I definitely do prioritize upside over anything, especially with this position of any position. Wide receiver, I only shoot for upside. It's absolutely massive. It's been proven every single year, and I think Calvin Ridley is honestly the definition of upside this year. He might be like top 5 in upside, especially where he's going as the wide receiver 17. I think he could just completely be a league winner. If you guys stack him with Trevor Lawrence, I think that's a league winning stack times 10. Like that is just a beautiful stack for how late they're going. It's just, I think they're going to be electric this year.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. You guys want to get into our wide receiver 19?
Yes, sir.
All All right, this is someone that the NFL seekers are consensus higher on. Terry McLaurin. He is the consensus wide receiver 21. We have him as our wide receiver 19. He comes in at my wide receiver 24. He comes in at Josh's wide receiver 16 and Shane's wide receiver 17. So I'm definitely a lot lower on him than you guys. So I will start with my McLaurin analysis. And I have nothing against the guy. I think he's always so productive. He's always, a great number one receiver for that team with poor quarterback play. Like I'm not even at all worried about Sam Howell with him. I don't think that'll even affect him. But the main thing with him is I'm really high on Jahan Dotson, and Sam Howell and Jahan Dotson showed at the end of last year that they had a really good connection. They were both in the same rookie class. He kind of seemed like he was favoriting Jahan. Even in the preseason week 1, he threw a touchdown to Jahan. So I think that connection just going to keep growing. And as good as Terry is, I definitely am shooting for more high upside options and better offenses.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm the highest on him, and I think that is just flat out disrespectful to Scary Terry. And I want him on my fantasy team just because I can put my name as Scary Terry, and that's important. Your name is important in this.
It is. It is.
I think Scary Terry is an elite fantasy name. But all jokes aside, Terry McLaurin is just a dog, and this dude has had an absolute carousel of quarterbacks. I mean, we're talking Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke. I mean, just an absolute dumpster fire of quarterbacks. And what does Terry McLaurin do? He puts up 1,000 yards no matter what every single season. I mean, so he's had like I've mentioned in previous podcasts, 3 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. In his rookie season, he had 919 yards, and he scored 5 touchdowns last 2 seasons. And I honestly think Sam Howell's going to be a better quarterback than these other guys. I have more faith in Sam Howell than I do Carson Wentz or Taylor Heineke. I think Sam Howell's going to figure out how to get the ball downfield. And I feel like, your best wide receiver is going to be your safety blanket, playing your first real season of football. So I expect big things from Terry McLaurin, and I'm super high on him. The dude is just so drastically underrated, and I think he is such a sleeper pick, and I want all the Terry McLaurin I can get because the dude is he's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there. I'm at my wide receiver 17, and me and Stuart are still low on him. Danny's really low on him. Last year, he finished as the wide receiver 14. He played every single game last year. One thing I will say, he was very inconsistent last year. He was the 22nd. He ranked 22nd in consistency of wide receivers. You get wide receiver 25, 30, 37, 21, 81, which is a nothing. Then wide receiver 9, 13. So like very inconsistent. But I do, like Josh was saying with Sam Howell, if it's Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett, I don't care. I think both those guys can produce a wide receiver 2, a top 20 wide receiver. Also, I think Eric Bieniemy gives this whole offense a huge boost, and obviously their alpha wide receiver 1, Terry. So that's why I'm higher on him. I think you're getting him sort of at a premium in the 5th round, finishing as wide receiver 14 last year. It didn't feel like he finished there, but he did. In 5th round, I feel like that's really good value for a guy like Terry.
Yeah, he's going as wide receiver 21, so you guys aren't low on him, but I do get what you're saying. Like Sam Howell does have a great deep ball, like a really, really pretty deep ball, surprisingly. And Terry McLaurin's like up there with Tyler Lockett is the best like ball trackers with deep balls and just coming down with crazy catches. So they will have some flashy, incredible plays. Like you said, it might be a little bit inconsistent. Maybe that's one reason I'm kind of shying away from him. But yeah, like nothing against Terry. I think 24 is just a little bit more appropriate for him when I'm going for upside.
Fair.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, let's get into wide receiver 18 now.
All right. The NFL Seekers consensus wide receiver 18 is going to be new Bears receiver DJ Moore. He is currently going as the wide receiver 22 consensus, so we're definitely higher on him. I have him as my wide receiver 20. Josh has him as his wide receiver 17, and Shane has him as his wide receiver 19. And I'll say our initial way too early wide receiver rankings, I had him as like my wide receiver 15, and he was in the 20s of both of your rankings. So this is completely flipped. I am somehow lower on him, and I was really high on him initially, and I still kind of am. Like you saw in that preseason game, that screen that he took to the house was just electric. Like I saw the ball come out of Fields' hands. I saw Moore about to catch that screen, and I just knew it was about to be a poetic moment, and it was really fun. I think there's going to be a lot of that happening. DJ Moore is a playmaker. The more I think about it, he's always been a playmaker, but he's been really inconsistent in fantasy. And like, if you've had him in fantasy, it's been a real struggle. So that's something that's kind of made me move him down a little bit, because I did have him as like my wide receiver 15 over DK originally. But yeah, I've just been moving him down a little bit. But as you saw in that preseason game, he's going to be electric. Let's hear why you guys have him so high.
So yeah, I mean, why I have him at 17 is, I'll be honest, I'm kind of a fanboy for the preseason. So when I see something exciting happen, and it just kind of gives me a little rub of what I think is going to happen in this Bears offense. And that was kind of just, and I've always liked DJ Moore, but I've never really wanted him on my fantasy team because I felt like he's inconsistent week to week. So I feel like he's a big boom or bust player. And Shane probably has the stats on that here in a minute, but I feel like either he's going to have these explosive weeks or he's going to score 3 points. And that's what's always kind of shied me away. But then the more I thought about it, and him switching offensive systems and going to the Bears, and them investing and trading for him, and getting rid of their first overall pick, it's just like, yeah, they're going to center this offense around DJ Moore. And I think DJ Moore is truly the best offensive skill player they have on that team. And when I saw a screenplay, I'm like, that's brilliant. That's what Justin Fields is going to hit. DJ Moore is so electric after the catch. And it just started clicking for me. And I feel like he's just going to be such a better player and revamped in this new Chicago offense. And I love it. I'm all in on DJ Moore. And that's kind of flipped, over the last couple months. So I'm glad we get to do 2 of these videos.
Yeah. I'm right there with Stores. I do like him a lot. I feel like he has a pretty high floor. He feels safe. In his 5 years with the Panthers, they were never a great team, never had great quarterbacks throwing to him. He, other than his rookie season, he finished as a top 24 wide receiver every season, 2019 through last year. And you could argue he's on a better team. I know they're not too far apart, but Justin Fields is looking like an elite quarterback. I guess we've seen it. The plays that DJ Moore can make on this team, we saw, I guess, one play we saw he can make, but he feels safe to me, which is crazy to say because he was even less consistent, or he was more inconsistent than Terry was. But we're on a new team. He's on a new team, new everything. It sort of feels like not to the level of Stephon Diggs, but I think we're looking at the same type of new team breakout season, just like Stephon Diggs did when he left the Vikings to the Bills. I feel like we're in the same type of realm. He's leaving a pretty bad team. He's on a high upside team. Everyone's excited about the Bears. He's got a better quarterback. So I think you can get him where you can get him. It feels like a safe pick, and he has definitely high upside.
Yeah, in the 5th round, that's nothing but upside. I feel like it kind of was a sneak peek of what this Bears offense can be and the potential that he can have. He could be a league winner. Going as a wide receiver 22, that's pretty crazy for the situation he's in. I guess people are kind of scared of how unproductive the Bears offense was last year, passing wise, but I definitely think they'll take a step up, improving the offensive line. Fields definitely is improved as a passer, so I think that'll improve. And DJ is going to be a beast.
He's going as wide receiver 22 right now. He finished 2022 as the wide receiver 22, and he's in a better situation now.
That was with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I'm ultra excited about DJ Moore. I really do think he's going to be electric, and I feel like that is a very safe, comfortable pick. Where you're able to get him, and I think we should start buying it on this DJ Moore hype.
All right, you guys want to get into our next guy?
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, the NFL Seekers wide receiver 17 is going to be Browns receiver Amari Cooper. He is the consensus wide receiver 19 right now, so we are higher on him as well. I have him as my wide receiver 19, and Josh and Shane both have him as their wide receiver 18. I'll let you guys talk about Amari first.
Go on, Shane.
Thank you. I don't have much to say. I mean, it's just, I feel like we always disrespect Amari going into NFL seasons, and he always outproduces his ADP. Last year, he was on it. The Browns were not good. Jacoby Brissett was fine, but he finished as the wide receiver 9 last year. Granted, most of that production came with Jacoby Brissett, and then when Deshaun Watson came back, it was atrocious. So hopefully we see the Deshaun Watson of old this year. And if Deshaun Watson is back to true Deshaun Watson on the Texans, I think Amari Cooper, I think we're all way too low on him. It just feels like Amari Cooper's a hard player to rank high. It's like, he's not a big flashy guy, but he's definitely very safe. I had him last year and he was amazing. He always produced. So I can see a world where he really outproduces this ADP again.
Oh man, 100%. I mean, he sneakily had 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns on 78 receptions, and that's a legit wide receiver one numbers right there. And I feel like everyone kind of just pictures him like a wide receiver 2 in fantasy, but he legit could be a wide receiver 1. I mean, finishing top 9 is insane with Jacoby Brissett and then Deshaun Watson, coming off of his big suspension. So obviously Deshaun wasn't going to be in midseason form. But yeah, I mean, this guy is just consistent. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL. He's got some of the best hands. And yeah, I mean, at where he's being drafted is way too low. And this guy has sleeper and steal all over him. So I mean, stock up on Amari Cooper. I mean, he's being drafted way too low.
Yeah, you guys made good points. Like he finished in the top 10 last year. I would say that there's almost a 0% chance that he finishes worse than he did last year, like statistically, yards wise. And honestly, he didn't have that many touchdowns. So touchdowns wise too. Like I think he'll be just as productive. I'm not saying he'll be a top 10 receiver because there's going to be other receivers that can go off and injuries happen. So another thing that Shane said that actually definitely resonated to me was Amari Cooper's kind of being moved down boards and people aren't really drafting him, just kind of forgetting about him because he's not the flashiest player or person. So it kind of makes sense why he's going as a wide receiver 19 and the 9th pick in the 4th round. It is an absolute steal. It looks like Deshaun Watson and him have a really good connection, even in their joint practices against other teams. They've looked really good. I think that it's pretty obvious that Watson's going to take a step up. Regardless of what you guys think about him, he's a really good NFL quarterback when he's right. And I think he's had enough time to get right. He's still pretty young in his prime. So, yeah, I think Amari Cooper is just going to take off. And, yeah, you guys made a lot of good points. He's definitely going to be a steal.
Take Amari Cooper. This might be our fantasy sleeper pick for me. So I might slap on him.
I want him again so bad. I loved having him last year.
Yeah, and I mean, like Josh was saying too, like he literally was a wide receiver 1 like half the weeks, even with Jacoby Brissett thrown to him. He was a genuine wide receiver 1, and I remember Shane having him, and I was pretty jealous because
didn't he only score at home or something weird like that?
Dude, that's really funny you say that. I was gonna mention that his home games. So week 1 he was away, wide receiver 86. Next 2 games were at home, wide receiver 9, wide receiver 4. Week 4 away, wide receiver 90. Next 2 were at home, wide receiver 11, wide receiver 24. Week 7 he was away, wide receiver 32. Week 8 he was home, wide receiver 6. Like I don't know what kind of sorcery that is, but that is weird, and I hope that doesn't continue. That was weird.
He loves Cleveland, I guess. That's crazy.
Oh man. Just bench him when he's not at home, play him when he's away. You'll still get the top receiver.
Yeah.
All right. You guys want to get onto wide receiver 16?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll get onto our wide receiver 16. It's someone that we are consensus lower on because he is the wide receiver 15 on consensus. I have him as my wide receiver 15. Josh has him as his wide receiver 19. And Shane has him as wide receiver 14. Josh, why is DK your wide receiver 19?
Explain yourself, mister. What is up with that?
DK is nothing against DK. DK is just awesome. But the more I think about it, I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tyler Lockett, and then they just drafted Zach Charbonnet, who's actually a pretty good receiving back. It just seems like, I don't know if even though Gino proved us all wrong, we all wrote him off and then he never wrote back and whatever, his little quote was. But it's still at the end of the day, it's like Geno Smith feeding, 3 legit wide receivers, and I feel like Jackson Smith-Njigba sneakily, takes away from DK more than Tyler Lockett. And I feel like Tyler Lockett's the one taking the hit more. I feel like,
DK is taking the hit more?
Oh, yes. No, I think Tyler Lockett's taken more of a hit off of Jackson Smith and Jigba than DK is. So I feel like DK is going extremely high, and I feel like Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK's, their play type is more similar than Smith and Jigba and Lockett, and so it's. I think DK is gonna. I do think he's still gonna be solid. I just don't know if I value him as a top 15 fantasy wide receiver in such a heavy, I just feel like there's too many mouths to feed, and I don't know if I trust Gino yet.
I feel like you have this backwards.
No, I get what you were saying. I was confused too, but he meant that Lockett is being affected on his ADP because of Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he thinks that DK will be more affected than Lockett in
whatever words I was spewing out, Danny can probably say them better, but yes.
No, that made sense now that so he thinks that Lockett is the one being hurt in his ADP, which is true. He's definitely being drafted way too low. And DK, I would say DK is kind of being hurt a little bit too, but yeah, I understand what you mean. Obviously, he's still really high, and you have Jackson Smith and Jigba there, so it is safer. And I get what you're saying that DK might take a hit with Jackson Smith and Jigba taking so much over the middle. I understand that.
Yeah, and I feel like Tyler Lockett is, the better value in the Seahawks wide receiver. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to spend a top 15 pick on DK. I'm not there yet. I don't believe in Gino that much, even though he was amazing last year.
I mean, DK's target share last year was out of this world. Week 1, 26%, 20%, 28%. 34%, 33%, 23%, 8%, 30%. Like, he's above 30% almost half the time, 41%. This is a wide receiver that you want, getting this type of target share. And I'm on the opposite side of stores. I don't think JSN is going to affect DK as much as some people like stores say he will. I mean, for one, he's still a rookie. It's going to take time for him to develop, come onto the scene. I know the draft capital is there. He's one of the best receivers in the draft class. He's going to break out. He's going to be awesome. It's still going to take some time. DK is still an established great wide receiver in this league. DK, if anything, JSN will eventually take from Tyler Lockett. They're just sort of the same type of player, where DK with DK's build, how massive he is, how fast he is, he's still going to get hyper targeted. That's why his target share is so high, as I just mentioned, because of who he is. A rookie isn't going to change that right now. No matter how, I don't care what the rookie is. I mean, I stand by that. A rookie is not going to change that. I mean, I think there'll be weeks where DK isn't as valuable as maybe he was before JSN, but the overall grand scheme of things, I don't think we see a drop off from DK just because of JSN. Last year, he finished as a wide receiver 18 with only 6 touchdowns. I say only 6 because that was the lowest in his career. His rookie year, he had 7 touchdowns. Sophomore year, 10 touchdowns. 2021, 12 touchdowns. This is a double-digit touchdown guy. He had 6 last year and still finished as wide receiver 18. I think those touchdowns are going to go up, and he's going to finish higher than wide receiver 18. That's why I have him at 14.
Yeah, so I think DK is pretty interesting. I'll say that there's kind of a teardrop after like the DeVonta Smith, T. Higgins conversation, and DK Metcalf's right there in his own tier after them, and I think he's kind of above Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, who we just talked about. I think DK Metcalf is kind of in his own tier, right behind those guys. So I think, like, I don't really find myself drafting him if I'm being completely honest. I don't know what it is. I just kind of never draft this guy. But like every season I find myself wondering why I don't, because he's really productive every year and he keeps being productive. I don't really see him going down in production. I think he'll probably go up in production. If anything, honestly, all 3 Seahawks receivers will probably go up in production. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm drafting DK Metcalf around wide receiver 15, but not above it, not below it, just wide receiver 15 exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't ever draft DK either. And I feel like it's because he's being drafted around guys like DeVonta Smith and even like Najee Harris, right by T. Higgins, Ramondre Stevenson, Lamar Jackson. He's kind of like in that cluster of people. And I always find myself going a different route, kind of like you did, like you just said, Dan. It's just like I just feel like I never draft him. But he is a good player. But I'll just be honest. Yeah, I don't know. He just the Seattle offense scares me. I think it will be really electric and really good, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm fully bought into Geno Smith after 1 year. And that's maybe a hot take. I mean, he played really good, but I don't know. He's at the end of the day, he still might be Geno Smith of the old.
You
But
you did explain that better than me. Like DK is going 2 picks after DeVonta and 5 picks after Olave. So like I think I have those players much higher than DK. So that's why I'm just not drafting DK, because I would rather have those guys and then get receiver later. So I'm definitely just not drafting DK where he's being drafted. That's a good
for what it's worth, DK was the 13th most consistent wide receiver last year. You know, that's above DeVonta Smith, above Jaylen Waddle, Chris Olave, all these guys that we're kind of mentioning. He was consistent. He's been consistent. The one knock I will say, I think his ADP on ESPN is ridiculously high. He's going to the first pick in the 3rd round. That's not right. Sleeper, he's at the end of the 3rd round. That feels a little bit more right. If you can get him at the 3-4 turn, I'm all for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, where he's being drafted, I feel like there's just guys I'd rather take. So that's kind of why I'm a little off on DK. But again, I think maybe you guys are a little too high on him.
It will be interesting to see how that offense shapes out with JSN coming in. It's pretty hard to predict because they haven't had a slot receiver literally since Doug Baldwin. So it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to get into our next guy?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. This is going to be an interesting one. This is someone that we are very high on compared to consensus. This is the consensus wide receiver 18. He comes in at the NFL Seekers wide receiver 15. He is my wide receiver 21. Josh and Shane's both wide receiver 12. Let's hear why you guys have Keenan so high.
I didn't realize, Josh, you moved him down a little bit. Respect.
Yeah, Josh did have him at 9. I made him move.
Last year, Keenan made me want to rip my hair out because I had him, and week 1 he got hurt, and then it was like just week by week waiting for him to come back. When he came back, he was the wide receiver 4. Week 12 and on, wide receiver. I know I just said he's a wide receiver 4, but like week 12 and on, he was a top 24 wide receiver every week. He finished as the wide receiver 1 at the end of the year, the last week of the season. I get he's old. I get he's injury prone. I'm probably going to be a little scared away from drafting him just because of what he did to me last year, and it hurt. I needed him last year. But I think the Chargers are going to be better. They're going to be a better offense. Justin Herbert's healthy. They got a great new offensive coordinator. Keenan Allen is a PPR machine. That's all I'll say. Stores, you can hype your man up.
He's a dog, man. You want a dog? He is your dog. I mean, Keenan Allen is just a reception machine. And when he's right, and when him and Herbo are on the field together, it's lethal. And maybe to Justin Herbert's fault a little bit, he targets Keenan Allen a lot more than anyone else on this offense. I mean, his eyes kind of do go immediately to Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen's always open. I mean, this dude is a route technician. I mean, you can throw it to him, down the field, middle of the field. I mean, short intermediate game where him and Justin Herbert just click. And I really don't feel like I get his age, but I really don't feel like it matters for the type of football he plays. It's kind of like that Devontae Adams, where these guys, once their speed goes, their career's over. That's not how these guys work. I mean, these guys are footwork technicians, and they get open and they just have soft, really good hands. And I mean, in Keenan Allen, gosh, if you want to be happy throughout fantasy football and he's healthy, you're playing in a PPR league, get Keenan Allen, because he is getting targets. How many games did he miss last year, Shane? Do you have it pulled up?
10, 11.
Yeah, missing 11 games and still getting 89 targets.
Wait, I'm going to count week 1 because he played like the first drive. 9, sorry, missed 9 games.
Yeah, so 9 games and still 89 targets, 66 receptions, 752 yards. And he's he was good last year with a horrible Joe Lombardi offensive scheme. And now you add in Kellen Moore to the offense. I mean, it's just going to be a night and day difference. And I think Keenan Allen's in for a top 10. If I'm being completely honest, I think Keenan Allen will be a top 10 wide receiver, given he stays healthy all year. And I don't feel like that's a hot take. I feel like that is very safe. If he's healthy all year, wide receiver, at least 10. At least 10.
Yeah, I have the utmost respect for Keenan Allen as a receiver and as a separator and route runner over the last decade or so. He's a NFL legend, honestly. It's just I have him as my receiver 21, and I feel like it's not that bad. But the reason is because he's simply 31 and he's very injury prone. I think he's the one receiver that you can guarantee that he's not the one receiver that we're going to talk about, at least that you can guarantee he's not going to play a full season. Like I know for a fact he will not be playing a full season. Probably the same with Mike Williams. And the reason I have him as my wide receiver 21 is because I am incredibly high on Quentin Johnston. He's my number one receiver of this rookie class. I don't really see a world where Quentin Johnston isn't a focal point who they just drafted in the first round. He's everything that like Keenan and Mike Williams, like he's like Keenan and Mike Williams combined into one player. He's a beast. I really think that you guys are going to lean on him and use him as like develop him into a wide receiver one by the end of the year. And Keenan is awesome when he's healthy, as we saw last year. Even last year, he was awesome. Herbert and him have a really good connection. Keenan catches everything. He's awesome. He's a touchdown machine in the red zone. There's a lot you could say about Keenan, but I really truly I find it so hard to draft this guy because I know that he's just not going to be able to stay healthy. He just has lingering issues like hamstrings, like quads, everything. Practice injuries. It's just so scary weekly with this guy being questionable every week. I truly, my reasoning is Quentin Johnston. I think Quentin Johnston will be like the wide receiver one in this offense fast.
So you mentioned Quentin Johnston, and I wanted to bring that up. I want to call stores out here. You just made the argument for DK. I guess I should say against DK because of JSN. But now you're in on Keenan Allen, but he's in basically the exact same situation as DK with the round one rookie.
Yeah, the difference is Justin and Herbert, and that's enough said right there.
Oh boy,
I think we can put Justin Herbert in an alien tier, and I think we can put Geno Smith in mid tier, and I think that's pretty fair to say.
Obviously I agree with you. Like I think Keenan's gonna be great, but I'm trying to help my boy DK out here. You mentioned there's a lot of mouths to feed in Seattle. I don't think there are. I think there's 2.5 wide receivers. Noah Fant. You can't really count Noah Fant. Yeah, a rookie and Zach Charbonnet. There's 2.5 to 3 real targets to kind of be spread around.
No, you're right. You're right. And the Chargers
they have Keenan, Quentin Johnston, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler. That's 4. That's 4 legit guys that spread it around. Plus, you added is Joshua Palmer still there? Jalen Guyton, Gerald Everett,
Palmer.
Yeah, there's you can keep hyping up the Chargers. I'm blushing, man. I'm blushing.
No, what I'm saying is you need to move up DK. That's what I'm saying.
That's a fair and good argument. Those are really good points. But I do just think Keenan Allen is just an elite receptionist. I think what's going to put him apart from, and I know DK gets a lot of target share, but I feel like the connection between Herbert and Keenan Allen is just something special. And there's bias. There's a little bias, but I mean, like you said, what was Keenan Allen? What did he finish the end of the season as wide receiver 4?
Yeah, through the last 9 weeks or
something. And I expect that to pick up where it's left off, and I expect it to be a lot better with Kellen Moore. That's the biggest thing, and a giant upgrade over Joe Lombardi.
So you mentioned Keenan and Herbert's connection. They have a great connection. Herbert obviously fits darts into Keenan. He catches all of them. But I will say, I feel like watching the Chargers, I feel like Mike Williams and Herbert's connection is even more special. I feel like that connection is something that's like they've been playing with each other the whole lives. Like their back shoulder connection. It's like they just can talk to each other through their headsets. I feel like that connection is even more special than Keenan's, but.
Yeah, no, they do. I mean, especially on those deep balls, it's like something you grow up with somebody playing backyard football and you've practiced it a million times. Justin Herbert's just special, man. Justin Herbert, I love Justin Herbert. Yeah.
At the end of the day, Herbert and Kellen Moore do drastically improve all three of the Chargers options. Like I'm drafting all three Chargers options. It's not like I'm fading any of them. I just have Keenan lower because, like I said earlier, I do really prioritize upside. Like the receivers I have right in front of Keenan Allen are DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Christian Watson, Calvin Ridley, and Jerry Jeudy. So literally just straight up upside, younger receivers in similar situations.
Which is fair. You're shooting for more of a ceiling, yeah, which I respect.
I won't lie. Keenan outside the top 20, Dan, that's pretty wild too, though.
It is.
Yeah, but like those 5 receivers I just said, like I would much rather have them because I only go for upside, and like I would have Quinn Johnson genuinely over Keenan Allen.
What?
Wait, what?
Wait,
I probably would. Like I'm really high in Quentin Johnson, man.
I get. He had a bad.
Why was not in our hot takes episode?
Well, like obviously, I'm considering their ADPs in this, but yeah, I mean,
all I'm saying, other than last year, not other than last year, so starting in 2021, he finished as wide receiver 14, going back a year, 14, 8, 12, 3. He went on a 5-year stretch. He's wide receiver 14 or better. In PPR, he's a PPR machine. We're talking PPR. A dude like Keenan, great veteran PPR monster. That's the type of dude you want on your team. Granted, the injuries are scary because he's never played a full season, so he's going to miss at least a game or two, if not more.
Yeah, I'll say a quote that you said last year, Shane. Like, this dude's hamstrings have got to be toothpicks. They don't make sense. He doesn't.
Last year was so frustrating.
That's another thing. I'm not relying on him staying healthy at all.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It hurts my soul. It hurts my soul.
Yeah, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about Keenan. He's got a great connection with one of the better quarterbacks, one of the better play callers. It's going to be fun in LA. But let's get on to our wide receiver 14. It is going to be T. Higgins for the Bengals. He is the consensus wide receiver 13. I have him as my wide receiver 13. Josh has him as 14, and Shane has him as wide receiver 16. T. Higgins is a beast. He changed his number to 5 this year. It makes me kind of even more excited for him. It's really fun. Like I did find myself moving him over DeVonta Smith on my list because I guess I am the highest on him. I just think that he has those weeks in the Bengals offense where he's the legit wide receiver 1. Jamar Chase does have some weeks where he's kind of just ghosts out there. But yeah, I just think T. Higgins is going to be awesome. If he's out there, he does have some inconsistency with injuries. I remember last year he had like 2 or 3 games where he suited up and didn't play. So that's like terrible for fantasy because you start him and then he gets you 0 points. So that definitely can't be happening. But yeah, I do think that T. Higgins is going to be really good this year, and I'm drafting him where he's being drafted.
Question, real quick. Joe Burrow back at practice?
No, but
any updates?
He doesn't.
No, he's not back.
No, he probably won't be back to this season. No, not at all.
Seems a little sus. Because wasn't he supposed to be back like a week ago? But I'm sure, yeah, you just freaking wrap some sticks around his leg with, a little duct tape, and he can still do a 3-step drop, and he'll still get the ball out to people. So that really won't matter.
Yeah, and he doesn't need to practice with these guys. He's got all the preparation, and they're not going to lose a step week 1. I promise them.
Okay.
It seems like I'm low on him. I guess this year, if with T. Higgins being drafted as the wide receiver 13, like most we pretty much are. Me and Josh are, but last year, he finished as the wide receiver 17. He played shockingly. He played all but 1 game. Okay, I lied. There, it's counting 1 game. He played all but 2 games. I just feel like his ceiling is so capped with being on that offense behind Jamar Chase. Even a top 10 wide receiver finish, I feel like it's tough for this guy being behind Jamar Chase. So that's why I'm a little lower on him. Plus his ADP is for a wide receiver 2. I know he's in that group with DeVonta Smith, T. Higgins, and Jaylen Waddle. You can make the same argument there, but personally, I like the other 2 guys much better. T. Higgins just feels capped, and he's tricky. He's definitely tricky. I kind of wish he wasn't on the Bengals. I hope next year he leaves. He can be a wide receiver 1 somewhere. I'm just trying to pull this up here. last year was his best finish as wide receiver 17. So I guess he could keep getting better, but it's just hard for me to want to drop a guy in the third round when his ceiling is capped like the way his is.
Yeah, that is 100% true. And like again, T. Higgins is another guy that I don't think I've ever drafted once in a fantasy mock draft, but he has been consistent since he entered the league. I mean, over the last 3 seasons, so he started in 2020, 108 targets, 110 targets, and then 109 targets. So I mean, the targets are there. And given it's about 70-ish receptions each year and then around 1,000 yards, but it feels like if he wasn't in this Bengals offense, he would just have such a higher ceiling and could produce elite wide receiver 1 numbers. But it is true, he is capped by Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase is the best receiver in that offense, and that's no slouch to T. Higgins, because T. Higgins is probably the best wide receiver 2 in football, and that's why he's going so high. Him and DeVonta Smith, kind of sixes to me, and I guess Jaylen Waddle. Okay, there's some good.
It's those three, yeah.
Yeah, it's those three. They're the best wide receiver 2s in football. But yeah, it does kind of feel like he's capped, but he does put up numbers. I mean, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 74 receptions is no slouch. But again, you would like, for taking a guy this high, you want him to be the legit wide receiver 1 in that offense, and that does make sense to me, Shane.
Yeah, he is so consistent. Like last year, every game that he actually played in fully, he finished over 10 points, and he got a touchdown like every other game. He was really incredible. He's a really productive and just a good receiver that's hard to cover. So I'm taking him. He's going up my boards, actually.
I guess I'll segue this into our next guy, which is DeVonta Smith. The reason I know those 3 guys are like sort of the same, but the reason I say I have me personally, I have T. Higgins at 16, then I got DeVonta Smith a little higher at 15, and then I have Jaylen Waddle at 13. The reason I have them in that order, T. Higgins hasn't proven yet in this situation that he's in that he can finish. Obviously, his best finish, like I said, was wide receiver 17. Jaylen Waddle, his rookie year, was already better than that. Wide receiver 16 last year, wide receiver 7. DeVonta Smith last year, wide receiver 10. Those 2 guys have already proven that they can finish much higher. T. Higgins, I need to see him. I seriously want him in a different offense to be the dude. I think he could be electric.
That's a fair point. I do think the best is yet to come, though, for T in this really good offense. I think it's going to be electric. But yeah, that's a good segue into our wide receiver 13, which is DeVonta Smith. He's going as the wide receiver 14 on consensus boards. I have him as my 14. Josh has him as 13, and Shane has him as wide receiver 15. And yeah, like Josh said, he's definitely one of the better wide receiver 2s in the NFL. He's a perfect complement to AJ Brown, and he was awesome last year. He had a goose egg week 1. I started him in my team. I get 0 points week 1, and then after that, he just exploded. He had like 40 points week 2, and he finished as a wide receiver 9 in fantasy, which is incredible as a wide receiver 2. So you absolutely love that. I will say, when Dallas Goedert got hurt, his production spiked up. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole offense plays out, like how Goddard and Smith affect each other when they're both healthy. But yeah, DeVonta Smith's a beast, and I'm really excited for him.
Yeah, kind of funny, because in our previous wide receiver rankings, I think I had him like 19 or something crazy like that. So the tables have definitely flopped for me on DeVonta Smith. But what really kind of changed my mind was really going through his games and then just seeing the target share and everything that he had. And I mean, he had 136 targets and he reeled in 95 of them. And that's wide receiver 1 type stuff. And he's doing that with AJ Brown, on the opposite side of him. And then put in 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. And I honestly think we might see another improved, better season from DeVonta Smith, because I honestly think Brian Johnson could sneakily, turn the offense a little bit more pass heavy, and maybe Jalen Hurts sees a little bit of a regression in his running touchdowns, without Shane Steichen there. And so I don't know. I do feel like, DeVonta Smith is a very high ceiling player. I feel like he could, honestly take over the wide receiver 1 role from AJ Brown. And that's a bold take, because AJ Brown's a legit wide receiver. But DeVonta Smith, I mean, dating back to Alabama, is just so elite, such a good route runner, has such smooth hands, and kind of just plays the whole field perfectly. I mean, he can run every single route, and I really, and he's young, and I think the sky is the limit for him, and I really think he might shoot up this year. And I honestly like the Brian Johnson scheme, which is going to be similar to Shane Steichen, but I think it might be a little bit more pass heavy, which excites me.
That's fair. Yeah, it is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be fireworks in Philadelphia, touchdowns all over between AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith. He had 7 last year. I don't know if I'll say he'll get more than that, but I think he'll definitely get 7 again. So it's pretty impressive. I'm excited for him.
Yes,
Want to talk about him, Shane?
I was just trying to. I mean, I don't have much else to say. I mean, maybe I'm a little low on him. It's just hard. I feel like there's so many great wide receivers, so many great young wide receivers this year. It seems abnormal that with how many there are. But DeVonta Smith, I was just kind of looking at when it comes to inconsistency, it's pretty wild. You know, week 1 he had 0 points. 2 weeks later, week 3 he finishes the wide receiver 1. You're going to see that with a guy when he's not the clear number 1, especially when with Dallas Goedert back. It's going to make it a little more sketchy, I guess you could say. But he's still pretty safe. He's a great pick. 3rd round is for wide receiver 2. It's crazy that Olave, Smith, Higgins, and Waddle, all wide receiver 2s going. Waddle end of the 2nd, and then the other 2 beginning of the 3rd. That's crazy, but they're great wide receivers. And I don't know, I'm in on them, but they're just still. I don't know. It's hard for me to want guys that are wide receiver 2s.
Yeah, makes sense though, and especially putting such a high draft capital in them, and that scares me too. But again, I really do. I see big things for DeVonta Smith. I think he can, as being a wide receiver 2, I think he'll for sure put up wide receiver 1 numbers.
Yeah, he did it last year, so could probably do it again this year. We'll go on to our wide receiver 12, and that is going to be the Saints wide receiver 1, Chris Olave. He is going as the consensus wide receiver 12. I have him as my wide receiver 12. Josh has him as his wide receiver 15, and Shane has him as his wide receiver 9. Shane, you want to talk about him first?
Yeah, I mean, I love this guy. He, it's only up from here. Last year is kind of a tough situation. Saints weren't that great. Quarterback play was meh. And we've got a solid veteran quarterback in Derek Carr throwing to him now. And last year as a rookie, when he was healthy, I mean, they used him. Week 1, I mean, it was his first NFL game, was 9% target share. After that, week 2, 33%, 33%, 25%, 24%, 30%, 23%, 32%, 30%. This dude, he averages almost 30% target share. They didn't necessarily make any changes to the wide receiver room. That scares me away from his target share necessarily going down. Honestly, I think it's only going up. That's why I have him at wide receiver 9. I think I mentioned in our hot takes episode.
Yeah,
he could finish as, was it top 5 or top 3 wide receiver? So I think he'll finish top 5, top 3. I think he can. I think there's a world out there that he does finish there. He just needs to stay healthy. I'm in on this dude. I want him so bad.
He's kind of feeling like this year's league winner. He finishes the wide receiver 25 as a rookie, and he only had 4 touchdowns last year. In 1,000 yards. I feel like that's an obvious big upgrade candidate with Derek Carr coming over. Whatever you think about Derek Carr, he was terrible last year. I'll be the first to tell you that, but it's still an upgrade. And I think Derek Carr, obviously, he did it with Davante Adams. He could still have a fantasy receiver produce. So I think it's going to be awesome. I think Chris Olave could definitely be league winning territory. If you're drafting in an ESPN draft, he's going in like the 5th round. So still Chris Olave in your ESPN drafts because he's going way too low. And yeah, Chris Olave is really exciting, and I think he's going to be he's going to take a big jump up this year.
Yeah, Derek Carr scares me. I mean, if you think about, yes, he did produce with Davante Adams, but Davante Adams had 180 targets, and he only caught. I had 180 targets, and he only caught 100 of them. So a lot of those were meh balls thrown by Derek Carr. But the fact that Derek Carr is throwing to his wide receiver 180 times is exciting. And that is exciting for Chris Olave for sure. And however you put it, Derek Carr is an upgrade over what Chris Olave had last year. And consensusly, I am lower on Chris Olave. I think there are a few guys that I do like more. But I do agree with Chris Olave has probably, out of all the wide receivers, going around this range, probably the biggest upside. So his ceiling is all the way up there at the top. And if you're looking to win your league and you want to be bold and get Chris Olave, because he could truly be a league winner. And I love that hot take you had last week, Shane.
You say you're kind of scared of Derek Carr. You mentioned he produced a wide receiver 3, I think, overall in DeVonta Adams last year. 2 years ago, he produced a wide receiver 11 performance from Hunter Renfrow. Say what you want about Derek Carr, he's still better than what Chris Olave had last year. So that's why I'm so high on him. It's a better situation than last year. Hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yeah, he's a great pick this year because he is grouped in that tier with Jaylen Waddle, DeVonta Smith, and T. Higgins, who are all wide receiver 2s, and he is the wide receiver 1 in his offense. Michael Thomas is the only other option. He's going to be there less than half the season as a lock. So yeah, Chris Olave is a lock to be dominant. He was so good as a rookie. I would say he looked just as good as Garrett Wilson, if not better. He was fantastic.
Even if Michael Thomas is there all year, I mean, you got Rashid Shaheed, like, okay, sure, he's a big play threat, and that's about it. They got 4 tight ends who are good. That doesn't affect Chris Olave. It's Chris Olave and no one else.
What if Slant Boy returns to his prime?
He won't.
I think that would be a perfect compliment to Olave. I think that would be the best thing that could happen to Olave.
It would actually be pretty good. Doesn't run routes about freaking 10 yards. So.
He can't do it, though. It's not possible.
If that was the case, then that means MT and Kamara and Carr would all have rejuvenations, and that would mean that Saints offense is great and Olave would be great. But yeah, that's probably an alternate reality. We'll get into our wide receiver 11. It's someone that's going as a wide receiver 11 right now on consensus boards, and that is the fun Dolphins receiver Jaylen Waddle. Me and Josh both have him as our receivers 11, and Shane has him as wide receiver 13. Jaylen Waddle's electric, man. This guy is an absolute burner. He's like Tyreek Hill 2.0. He's like the closest thing to Tyreek Hill and their teammates. It's awesome. Tua showed last year that he can definitely have both of these great receivers produce at the same time. At one point in the season, Jaylen Waddle was doing just as good as Tyreek Hill, and he was averaging like 15 points a game, and he was the top 5 receiver last year. So I love the guy. If Tua can stay healthy, I think that they have a really good connection, and the Alabama connection is going to keep going.
He's not boom or bust. That's not what I'm trying to say, but he's boom or just okay. I like to look at the target share percentage stat. He was, you're looking at 30+% target share, or mid 20% target share and higher, or 10%, 14%, 15%, 13%. So, it's hard with, you got a guy like Tyreek Hill in front of him, but he's proven. Last year he was wide receiver 7. I think this year he comes a little bit back down to earth. Maybe I'm a little bit too low on him at 13. I guess he probably is still going to be a top 12 wide receiver. I'll probably end up moving him up, but I just think this year he comes back to earth a little bit. But still, he's going to be great. He's going to be awesome, explosive.
Yeah, I love Jaylen Waddle. I owe Jaylen Waddle a lot. Jaylen Waddle 2 years ago, just his performance against the Saints, just an absolute fantasy playoff god to me. And forever in debt to Jaylen Waddle. Absolutely love him. But yeah, he's a legit wide receiver 1, and he's playing with Tyreek Hill, who's top 5 wide receiver. And it's nuts that these guys could possibly be on the same team. I mean, they're the 2 most fast, legit, best hands wide receivers, because usually you get guys who are just fast and they can't catch, but Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are just both insane. And it's just kind of crazy that those 2 somehow are on the same team. It doesn't even feel real. But yeah, I mean, Jaylen Waddle, the fact that he put up 1,350 yards and 8 touchdowns with Tyreek Hill on the opposite side of him, it's just legit. It shows what kind of talent he is. And, his rookie season, Jaylen Waddle actually had 104 catches on 140 targets. It regressed a little bit with Tyreek Hill, but I mean, 140, 117 targets, 1,000 yards in both of your first two seasons is, legit. And I think year 3, Jaylen Waddle could be even better. We might even see another step forward. Maybe, Tyreek Hill slows down and Jaylen Waddle, takes over that, X receiver, wide receiver 1 role. So I don't know. I'm super high. I love Jaylen Waddle, and he's a dog. And I it all depends on Tua and his concussions, but Jaylen Waddle's awesome.
Yeah, and he'll give you some league-winning weeks as well. Last year, he had a game with 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a game with 102 yards, 129 yards, 114, 143 yards, and a touchdown. So there are consistently games that he will take over and be a week winner for you. And with him doing that opposite of Tyreek Hill and both of them being able to put up numbers like that consistently, it's pretty incredible. So as long as Tua can stay healthy, he's a good point guard to dish the ball out to both of them, and I like that a lot. And he's being drafted out of premium. He is the only player we're going to talk about in our wide receiver 20 to 11 rankings today that is being drafted in the end of the second round. Everyone else is going third or later. So he's definitely being drafted out of premium because of how talented he is.
He had 19 targets week 2. That's crazy. I just want to throw that out there.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. The Dolphins are kind of a weird offense. The way Mike McDaniels runs it and everything, it is kind of weird. But I mean, it can produce huge numbers.
Well, he's a weird dude.
You're not wrong. Oh man, he's a weird dude. Facts.
So are their fans.
Yeah, their fans.
Anything else you guys want to say about Waddle?
Just draft Waddle. He's gonna be awesome.
Also, Jaylen Waddle has some elite fantasy names too,
Oh my gosh. All right, Dan, let's wrap this up.
Put that into consideration when you're drafting him.
Draft Jaylen Waddle and Terry McLaurin per Josh because of the fantasy names that they provide you. So
it's important. Yeah. Do Waffle House, do Waddle with a little penguin,
All right. Well, that was really fun. It was fun getting into our wide receiver rankings. I feel like we had a lot of differing opinions, but that's how it's going to go with these. And we got our top 10 wide receiver rankings next. So check that out. We have our tight end rankings out already. We have some deep dives coming out. So check out the NFL Seekers podcast on all platforms. This was fun.
3 more weeks. 3 more weeks, and the NFL is back.
That's surreal. That's crazy.
Crazy.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Peace.